This very well might be the best soccer game on the Super Nintendo. International Superstar Soccer is extremely good. The European and North American versions are a lot of fun. But the real gem here is the Japanese version. This is above and beyond any soccer game that was released at that time. And you know, for the purpose of clarity, I'm going to call the sport soccer in this video, not football. Now, the reason for this is because every single game I'm going to talk about uses the word soccer in its name. I think this is mostly because in Japanese they call it soccer, not football. So just so you know, that's what's going on here. First though, let's talk a little bit about the name in Japanese. So it's called Jikyo World Soccer Perfect 11. Now the word Jikyo simply means realistic or lifelike. This isn't a branded name or anything like that. This is confusing because Konami came out with a baseball game called Jikyo Powerful Pro Baseball about 10 months before this game was released. Now the baseball game is great, but there's no relationship between the two at all. And usually you see that word Jikyo go untranslated when people translate the names of these games from Japanese into English. I don't know why, but they just don't translate it. Anyway, just keep this in mind. It's not a completely meaningless word, but it's also not like the name of a series or some sort of proper name. It actually does mean something. Anyway, the first thing you'll notice about this game is its amazing graphics. This really is the height of the Super Nintendo's graphical capabilities.
Red card.
Plus, if you can't tell, the Japanese version also has quite a bit of play-by-play commentary, including the announcer reading the name of the players. The whole presentation is extremely impressive for 1994. Anyway, for this video, we're going to think of the publishing date of this game as 1994. I think it's November 94 that it came out in Japan. Apparently, it came out sometime in summer 1995 in North America. But the thing that's crazy about this is I can't figure out which month. I mean, Wikipedia says like June or July or something like that, but I haven't been able to find any mention of this game in any of the major video game magazines in North America at the time. I don't know if they were sick of soccer games or what, but whatever it is, for some reason, it went unnoticed by some of the real big players in the scene. That's bizarre because the graphics in this game are better than any other soccer game on the Super Nintendo, and it's not even close. If you don't believe me, just take a look at what the best of the competition looked like. This is Super Sidekicks on the Neo Geo, an arcade quality game that came out in 1992. It's okay, but I think International Superstar Soccer looks better. Here's Super Sidekicks 2, which came out in 1994, a few months before International Superstar Soccer. I still think the Super Nintendo game looks better. Now, Konami's arcade game Soccer Superstars looks a little bit better, sure. But it's really hard to see what's going on in that game. Plus, the Super Nintendo was not likely going to achieve this kind of 3D effect at a playable frame rate. I mentioned the basketball game Run and Gun in an earlier video that uses the same engine that Soccer Superstars used. The Super Nintendo version of Run and Gun was called NBA Give and Go.
Takes it in. Power dunk. Yeah, yeah.
And it was totally unplayable. Even compared to that game, International Superstar Soccer looks simply amazing. Well, everything about this game is superb, though there are a couple of things that take a little while to get used to. It took me a little while to figure out how to change players. This is one of those games where you really do need to read the manual first. The right button on the shoulder changes players. Meanwhile, the Y button lets your player dash. So for me, it's kind of hard to remember that, and the reason why is because I've been playing a lot of NBA Jam lately. So on NBA Jam, I like having the turbo be, the shoulder buttons, and then I usually will use like the A or X button to pass. Well, in this game, your turbo button, the dash, is the Y button, and then the right button chooses the different guy when you're on defense. It's kind of backwards, and it's the opposite of what I would expect. Anyway, like in most soccer games, your player will try a variety of tackles and other moves when you push the button on defense. The most obvious one is the slide tackle, which I usually end up spamming once I figure it out. It's a great way to get your player sent off. Okay, there are only two complaints I have about this game. The first one's minor, and the second one is actually kind of common for games from the mid-90s. The minor complaint I have is that the computer-controlled players usually just stand there. Now, I understand it if my own players do nothing because I need to change to them to control them. That part makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is when I can just run in past the other team's defenders without anything happening. I know that it's hard to have individual programming instructions for so many players at once. However, the AI here seems kind of helpless. Now, this major complaint, unfortunately, is the one thing that kind of holds me back from saying that this is the perfect game. That's the camera angle. For whatever reason, Konami decided that it would be best to have the camera zoomed in as much as possible. Now, I understand that they wanted to show off the sprites, and it's not necessarily a bad idea. However, it's really hard to figure out what to do when you can only see a fraction of the pitch. There's this radar that's supposed to tell you where your players are. So in this match, I'm controlling North Korea, which is one of the cool features of the Japanese version of the game. My players are in red, however, they're marked in blue on the radar. So it took me like a full half of playing one game to actually figure that out. I mean, it's just not a great option. You should zoom the camera out. It's not really that hard. But, as I said, International Superstar Soccer was not the only game at the time that suffered from this particular issue. This is Mega Man Soccer, a game that a lot of people really like. It's actually not bad. Actually, it's mostly a port of this old Technos Japan NES game, which was known as World Cup Soccer in North America. The screen size is just about the same in both games. Now, the comparison is even more obvious if you've played the Sega Mega Drive version of that Technos game. Now, Mega Man Soccer suffers from slowdown issues mostly because of all the sprites on the screen. That's one place where the Genesis version is superior. However, because of the small viewing space, it's really hard to enjoy these games. Actually, International Superstar Soccer gives you at least a little bit more to look at. Now, the thing that's incredible, though, is just how much more advanced International Superstar Soccer was than any other soccer game on the Super Nintendo. I mean, it's not even close. Here's Jalico's Super Goal 2, for example. This is actually a fun and playable game, though it has some really bizarre quirks. But the graphics aren't even close to International Superstar Soccer. Capcom had a different soccer game come out in early 1994. Unfortunately, they decided to not let you know which player you're controlling. It also feels more like playing Pong than soccer. And then there's World Cup Striker, which plays too quickly. It's like the soccer version of Super Street Fighter 2's Turbo. Well, the real competition that International Superstar Soccer had on the Super Nintendo was likely the Sensible Soccer series. And yeah, there is a Super Nintendo version of that series. In fact, there are two games that were clearly based on the same source code. The nice thing about Sensible Soccer on the Super Nintendo is that you can actually see what's happening in front of you. I don't know why more games don't use a point of view like this one. Maybe the graphics aren't spectacular, sure. But it's nice to be able to actually see your formation. Anyway, the second game based on that engine was World Cup USA, as you can see here. The menu system in this game is nothing short of bizarre. Like what, was there a tax on words or something? Anyway, the game is sensible soccer with a few minor graphical improvements. I would still rather play sensible World of Soccer, but there's nothing bad about this game. But look at how International Superstar Soccer compares with those games. I mean, this looks like a game from a different system. And of course, the most obvious competition came from EA's FIFA series. You know, that series that everybody talked about for so long that ended up dominating the market and stuff like that. In hindsight, I really don't know why the FIFA series ended up being dominant in the market, because it wasn't that good. Now, FIFA International Soccer on the Genesis is a good game, I should be fair. It's a little bit sluggish, which was typical of EA Sports games in those days. However, the graphics are nice and the camera angle lets you actually see what's going on. The Super Nintendo version feels a little bit faster. However, this is because the game is dropping frames. The amazing thing about International Superstar Soccer is that it achieves this level of speed without dropping any frames, at least not that I can tell. And the graphics simply look better. In fact, International Superstar Soccer was better than the next FIFA Super Nintendo game. Here's FIFA Soccer 96 on the Super Nintendo. This game is so clunky and slow that it's really unplayable. I'm still not sure how to change players, everything's really delayed. Out of all the games I've mentioned in this video, this is easily the worst. And actually, I think that International Superstar Soccer was better than FIFA games that came out like 6 years later. I took a few minutes to play UEFA Euro 2000 on the PlayStation. I owned the PC version of this game when I was a kid, and the PC version does look better than this, sure. I mean, this game is okay, but it feels kind of clunky and delayed. It is satisfying to get your players sent off, though.
Oh, a fantastic shot, and the save equally impressive from the keeper.
No mistakes there from the keeper.
That's a ridiculous assault on the goalkeeper. I'll be amazed if he stays on the field. He's off, and they've lost yet another player to a red card.
But International Superstar Soccer is something miles above it in gameplay. This game is faster, and the graphics are really just as good, at least in my opinion. It's proof that you don't need a sophisticated 3D engine to make a good game. The thing is, I just wish that they had zoomed out. In fact, the Super Nintendo had that famous Mode 7 technology, right? I wish that the people at Konami would have figured out a way to use Mode 7 to allow the camera to zoom in and out when you need it to be further back or further in. I mean, you know, let me see more of the pitch when I need to see more. But all in all, that's really not a huge deal. This game is an absolutely fantastic game, and it's still more than playable today. Once you get used to the awkward radar system, you're pretty much good to go. Just stay away from those sliding tackles.
Foul. Red card.
Well, anyway, long story short, I really think that this series is the best soccer series of all time. It's fantastic. This particular game, the first one, is a ton of fun to play even 30 years later. So go and play it.